Okay, welcome everyone. Wednesday night, Halacha Chassidus. We are following on the heels of Yutes Kislev, the 19th of Kislev, the Chag HaGeula, the freedom, the day of release from prison in Zoroaster of the Alter Rebbe, which heralded the rapid expansion of Hasidic movement and the teachings of Chassidus. And we, Baruch Hashem, had a Fabrengen here, and we're continuing now. The day of Yutes Kislev really continues into the 20th, from the 19th to the 20th, which is today. So I guess in the inyan of this day of Yutes Kislev, which is the inyan of Chassidus, really, we're going to learn Chassidus. The way Chassidus is meant to be learned, I hope. That's what we're going to try to do. And you see the Alter Rebbe's name was Shneir Zalman. Shneir Zalman. Shneir is Shnei Or. Two lights. Because the Alter Rebbe, Shneir Zalman, lived up to his name of being Shnei Or. He was two lights. He brought two lights to the world in a tremendous way. The light of the revealed Torah, Nigla de Torah, the Gemara, Halacha, and he wrote the Shulchan Aruch Harav, which we many times on Wednesday nights take pieces from there. If you don't have the Shulchan Aruch Harav, you don't have a library. That's just the way it is. And he also wrote the Tanya and many other works of Chassidus, which is the Torah Hanistan, the hidden light of Torah, the Pnimius HaTorah, the inner teachings of Torah, the Neshama of Torah, which is the Tanya and many other Svarim Chassidus that he wrote. Shabbos morning we learn Torah Or usually. So in that inyan, what we're going to try to do is take an inyan in Nigla, an inyan in Halacha, which I think is probably going to be a concept that is familiar to most of us. And we're not going to go so deep into it. We're going to discuss it a little bit. There's way more to discuss. So maybe it's not a short source sheet. I don't know. There's way more to discuss. We're going to discuss it, I think, relatively basically. And then we're going to try to show how we can see Chassidus through the Nigla. Can we see the teachings of the Pnimius HaTorah, the inner teachings of Torah, as they express themselves in the Nigla, the Torah, in Gemara, in a concept in Gemara? That's what we're going to try to do tonight. And the shir tonight is based on a shir that I listened to, that I heard, which was given in Yeshivas Timchet Timimim Lubavitch in Brunois in France, where my son goes to yeshiva. And there was a special guest there, and he gave a shir. And this is based, at least, pretty much mostly, if not entirely, on that shir that he gave. But I guess I'll do it in my style, not in his style. He's his own person. So the topic is Osek b'mitzvah Pottur min haMitzvah, which means, in plain English, one who is engaged in a mitzvah, one who's doing a mitzvah at a particular point in time, is Pottur min haMitzvah, is exempt from doing another mitzvah. That's the general halachic framework. We're going to take a look at the Gemara, and we're going to take a look at a little bit of Rishonim, and try to understand, and Achronim, try to understand a little bit what that is, and then again, we're going to go to the Chassidus from there. Okay, good? So we start with the Gemara. It's a pretty well-known Gemara, Daf Chaf Heyom and Aleph, towards the bottom in Masechta Sukkah. So you have it on the right side of the source, number 1 on the right side of the page. Osek b'mitzvah Pottur min haMitzvah. Frag the Gemara. It's been discussing. I left out that we don't have the time for a full Gemara share. We really should dedicate time just to learn the Sugya and Gemara, to go through the whole Sugya, but it's just a Wednesday night share. Maybe Tzvi is learning Masechta Sukkah, so he can tell us about this a little bit. But the Gemara is discussing the concept of Osek b'mitzvah Pottur min haMitzvah, and it suggests, everything in Gemara, you have to know where does it come from, right? You can't just say, even if you're a Tana in a Gemara, you can't just say something. You got to have a proof to know where did you get it from, which pasuk is from, is it a svar, is it a rationale, where does it come from? Where is it derived from? So too, Osek b'mitzvah Pottur min haMitzvah, the Gemara is discussing what is the mocha, what's the source? How do we know that if you're engaged in a certain mitzvah, you don't have to do other mitzvahs? How do we know that? The Gemara discusses one issue, and now comes to our point here. Is this concept of Osek b'mitzvah, is that derived from here? I mean, what was said previously in the Gemara, which again we're not going to go into right now. No, it's derived from somewhere else, from over there, Tanya, from where? It's the Braisa. The Braisa quotes a pasuk from Parashas Ba'aloischa, which discusses Pesach Sheni. This would be a good shir to have for Pesach Sheni. The pasuk says, there were certain people that were tamei, they were ritually impure because they had come in contact with nefesh adam, which means they come in contact with a corpse. And therefore, since they were tamei, when the time came for the Korban Pesach. Therefore, exactly, they were not allowed to bring the Korban Pesach. Why? Because they were tamei. The Gemara, who were these people? The Torah just says there were people. Which people? So the Gemara answers, these were the people who were carrying the coffin of Yosef HaTzadik, who was no longer alive. He's in a coffin. So since they were carrying the coffin, they became Tamei Mace as a result. They became Tamei from coming in contact with a corpse, and therefore they were Tamei, and therefore they cannot bring the Korban Pesach. That's a Yosef Glili. Zok the Gemara Viter. Now this, if you have an actual Gemara, if you're watching online at home, and if you have an actual Gemara, we flip the page to the base now. Rabbi Akiva says, no, it was different people. Mishal v'al hayu. It was Mishal and Tzofan. What were they doing? Shahayu oiskim b'nodav aviyu. They were also dealing with corpses. Nadav and Avihu, sons of Aaron, had entered into the Beis HaMikdash in the inappropriate time and in the inappropriate way, and they died as a result. Now someone's got to get the bodies out of there. Who did that? Mishal and Al-Tzafan, that's who did it. So they were carrying the corpses of Nadav and Avihu, so they also become Tom. But either way, whether it's a Glili or it's a Akiva, someone was coming in contact with a dead body, with a corpse, and then for Tommy, then for no Korban Pesach. And then Yitzchak says 1 minute. It's not correct. Something's wrong here. If the people that we're talking about were those people who were carrying the Aron, the coffin of Yosef, no, so let them dunk in the mikveh, let them become tar already. Meaning they had enough time on the calendar from when they were carrying the coffin of Yosef. They had enough time to become tar. It's a process, but they had time. But on the other hand, also they also could become tahar, purified. Why? Because the Mishkan was put up on the 1st of Nisan, right? Which was the 8th day of the Meha Milun, the 8th day of inaugurating the Mishkan. And that's when Nadav and Avihu were burned and died. So you had 7 more days until Erev Pesach, after the 8th day, so you had plenty of time.
14. Or 2 weeks, 2 weeks. Yeah. But it takes a week.
Right. Good. Thank you.
The first case, they didn't come really, they just were holding the casket. That makes you.
Yeah.
Tamei.
Yeah. So either way, says Rabbi Yitzchak, why should this prevent them from bringing the Korban Pesach? You've got time to become tahor. So go become tahor and stop complaining and bring the Korban Pesach. That's
the same people carrying the casket that they carried for 40 years in the desert.
I don't know. The Gemara in Saita discusses a little bit this. I don't know. Rather, says Rabbi Yitzchak, it's not that they were tamei. That's not why they didn't bring the carbon. Rather, because again, if they were tamei, so become tahor, you've got enough time. Rather, says Rabbi Yitzchak Ella, oiskin b'meis mitzvah. He doesn't change the facts. The facts are either according to one opinion they were carrying the coffin of Yosef, or according to the other opinion they were carrying the corpses of Nadav and Avihu. But it's not because of the tumah. It's because they were involved in the mitzvah called meis mitzvah.
But if they were involved with a mitzvah or base mitzvah on the day that the Korban Pesach would be done, then I could hear you say, Osek in 1, don't leave. But we're saying that because you were Osek 2 weeks before, that potters you from the potential of doing Korban Pesach 2 weeks later?
I think that's the continuation of the Gemara.
You're in Florida.
They were engaged in the meis mitzvah, tending to the corpse, which was a mitzvah to bury. And I guess no one else is able to do it. And in that case, Shechol Shvishal and Liyas Be'erev Pesach. And the 7th day of their impurity occurred on the Erev Pesach. That was, if you work out the calendar, it was the 7th Erev Pesach. How do we know that? Shenemar, v'lo yochlu l'aseh ha'pesach b'yamahu. They could not bring the Korban Pesach on that day. That day is the 14th of Nisan, Erev Pesach. What does it mean by on that day? They couldn't bring the Korban Pesach on that day. So says the Gemara, that day they couldn't do it. But the next day, that they could do. So it's not that they were Tomei per se. It's really that they were engaged in a mitzvah. They were Osek b'mitzvah. And therefore, they didn't have to do anything else. They didn't have to be engaged in another mitzvah. Namely, Korban Pesach. They're Pottur from Korban Pesach. They didn't have to do it because they were Osek b'meis mitzvah. They were involved in another mitzvah. Okay. There's more to the Gemara, but for now, let's leave that. Again, it's not really a full shir on Osek b'mitzvah. It's just to get some ideas. Really, this itself deserves that we should dedicate time to learn the sugya properly and go through it. But for the sake of a taste, we'll stop here for now. So the concept is Osek b'mitzvah, Pottur min mitzvah. What does that mean? It means that if you're doing one mitzvah, you don't have to do another. You're exempt. Pottur. Pottur means you're exempt.
It doesn't say Osek mitzvah, it says Osek.
That's a good point. We're gonna come to that. We're gonna come to that, God willing. We're gonna come to that in the Ran, in source number 3, God willing. Now, let's take a look at some Rishonim. And we'll try to make it as good of a package as we can, God willing. Source number 2, Taisvis, on the page. Chaf Hey Amud Aleph, Taisvis. I just quoted part of it. There's more to it. And the last word on the first line, V'tema frekt Taisvis. Taisvis asks a kasha. What do you mean that if you're doing one mitzvah, you can't do another mitzvah? What are you talking about? If you could do both, is this like a patent rule? If you're doing a mitzvah A, then you don't need to do mitzvah B. What are you talking about? If you could do both of them, amai Potturin. So why should you be exempt from mitzvah B? If you could do both without one interrupting the other, so why are you exempt from mitzvah B? Question, exclamation point. Just because a person is wearing tzitzis, am I doing mitzvah now? Yeah. What if I'm wearing tefillin at nighttime? What if I'm wearing tefillin during shachris? Someone comes to me and says, "Can you give me tzedakah?" Sorry, I'm doing a mitzvah. 2, I've got tefillin, I got tzitzit, I can't give tzedakah is a mitzvah. I can't do it because the Gemara says, "Osek b'mitzvah, Pottur min mitzvah." Frank says, what kind of business is that? It doesn't make sense. It's not logical. So Tosfos says, and the Ritva and the Rosh also hold this way, that the pshat of Osek b'mitzvah, Pottur min mitzvah is only when you cannot do both.
It's mutually exclusive.
Right. But if you're wearing tzitzis, as he says, tzitzis b'bigdoi, so now I can't do a mitzvah? I can't do something else? It doesn't make sense. It's not logical.
I was going to ask about shaking a lulav in a sukkah, so it's also you do 2 mitzvahs.
Okay, I was maybe going to give something like that as an example, maybe. I was going to talk about what if a person is an oinen? An oinen means that one of the relatives died and have not been buried yet. And it's sukkahs. So do they have to go in the sukkah? An oinen is Pottur from mitzvahs. They don't have to go in the sukkah. What if they do go in the sukkah anyway? Did they do a mitzvah or they did nothing? Okay, it's time to think about it.
Does it matter the type of mitzvah we're talking about? Like, I know that we say that there isn't like a hierarchy of mitzvah, but the reality is there is. I mean,
right. There isn't, but there is.
So is it like one of those?
There's the Raisa, the Rabbanan.
Is it like one of those? If you're doing a higher level mitzvah, you're Pottur from doing a lesser one? Like, well, could that be an interpretation?
In a sense, isn't that what Tosfos is in some way saying? He's saying, guys, there's different types of mitzvahs. Some mitzvahs, like tzitzis, like tefillin, don't require you to really do anything. Now, maybe it's different if I was tying my tefillin on. Maybe that's more active.
No, but like let's say you're doing kibbud avei.
Right, you're saying a doraisa mitzvah, the rabbanan mitzvah.
So
this is okay. This is where the discussion of mes mitzvah comes into play if no one else can do it. A mitzvah should eat after lasos acherim. A mitzvah no one else could do. Okay, and this is Tosfos. That if the mitzvahs are not, as Patrick said, if they're not mutually exclusive, So why are you Pottur from mitzvah B? You're wearing tzitzis mitzvah A, and mitzvah B comes along. You're not Pottur from it. You could do it. Taisus. Source number 3, the Ran. The Ran is a whole longer piece, and also the Or Zarua holds this way. The Ran disagrees with Taisus. It's a little bit strange on the page. It's a little 2 lines, and then it skips a blank space, and there's more of the Ran. It's a longer piece, but now the Ran was born in 1290 in Spain, or I don't know if it was actually Spain at the time, or if it was Spanish territory. I'm not much of a historian, but born in 1290, passed away 1376, Middle Ages. He was heavily influenced by the Ramban, by the Rashba, by others. In any event, the Ran is in the back of the Gemaras there. Ninali, says the Ran. The ha'osek b'mitzvah in a mitzvah, that one who's engaged in a mitzvah, who's doing a mitzvah, is Pottur from all other mitzvahs, even if bam, disagrees with Tosfos. You heard that? Even if you could do both of them, you're still Pottur. It's a rule. If you're doing mitzvah A, you don't have to do mitzvah B. You're Pottur for mitzvah B. 1 second. So he's directly going against Tosfos.
He doesn't say you shouldn't do it.
1 second. Yeah.
Would if he were to now do that mitzvah, would that now be greater that he's doing it when he's Pottur, or is it like because he's Pottur now it's not like that's good?
Generally speaking, the rule in halacha is that if a person does a mitzvah that they're Pottur from, so generally speaking, we say the person is called a hediot, which is a nice way of saying an idiot.
Oh,
A fool.
Someone eats in the sukkah once, right?
I didn't want to say that.
Oh, okay.
But I was thinking.
Everyone's thinking.
Now, the Ran continues. So he said again, against Tosfos, even though we could do both, skip to the next thing. He's talking about they have a shluchim mitzvah, have a gonu chutz l'sukkah. There were people were on a mission. They were doing a shlichus, so they rested. They stayed outside of the sukkah because they were Pottur from sukkah because they were involved in a certain mission at that point, a certain shlichus. The kolzman shlichuson, that all the time they were involved in their shlichus. Oiskim b'mitzvah mikra. You hear that? Oiskim b'mitzvah mikra. Shalom, like you said before, I think something like, doesn't say oisem mitzvah. It says oisik b'mitzvah. So the Ran holds that it's when you're oisik b'mitzvah, when you're actively engaged in a mitzvah. But stam, you're wearing tzitzis on you? That doesn't require asek. You're not doing anything if you're wearing tzitzis. So if you're wearing tzitzis, you're not Pottur from other mitzvahs. Only when you are oisik in a mitzvah, when it requires your focus, your attention, and so forth. That's because in that story where they were on a shlichus to carry out whatever the shlichus was, they're oisik in the mitzvah, they're actively involved in it, and therefore they're Pottur from another mitzvah. Okay, so that's Rishonim. Source number 2, we have Tosfos. Source number 3, the Ran. Let's take a look now in source number 4, the Kovetz She'urim. Hashgacha brought my son Shmuel recently got, I don't know, I think we saw it somewhere, and he was like, oh, I want that. And I was preparing the shirt today. I was like, 1 second, I think I got the safer. I don't know what possessed him to buy it, but he did. Kovetz She'urim is by Rebbe Chanan Wasserman, famous Rosh Hashiva. Famous Litvish Rosh Hashiva was murdered by the Nazis in Shema. And here I have Chelik. He only has Chelik Aleph, and it has in here Masechta Bava Basra. So now he was born in Lithuania in 1874. He passed away. He didn't pass away. He was murdered, Rahman al by the Nazis in 1941. It was a whole group of people, and they were, I think it wasn't officially Nazis. I think it was officially Lithuanian sympathizers. Huh?
He was shot.
Yes, that's correct. I know it's the same bouquet, whatever it was in Machshman. He was a Talmud of the Chavetz Chaim, who I think at some point pushed him to become a Rosh Hashiva somewhere, I believe. I don't know so much about it. Talmud of Chavetz Chaim, Talmud of Shimon Shka, Talmud of Reb Chaim Brisker. He was a big goin, a Litvisher. Anyway, it's interesting. It says here, and I just noticed now, it says on the title page, Kovetz She'urim, that it was published by his son, Elazar Simcha Wasserman, who obviously survived the war, came to America, and became Rosh Hashiva in Detroit, and helped found other yeshivas, including he helped found Yeshivas Oir El Chanan, named after his father, Yeshivas Oyer Elchanan Chabad in Los Angeles, named after Elchanan Wasserman. That yeshiva still exists to this day. So we're going to read a piece from his Sefer Kovetz She'urim, which appears in Masechta Bava Basra, and you have it here on the page. It's two on the right column and goes down to the left column. Let's see. I guess the end of the first line. The b'shasha Osek b'mitzvah, who Pottur mitzvah. So let's take a look at this. Says Rebbe Chonon Wasserman. When a person is involved in a mitzvah, he's Pottur from a mitzvah. V'im lo yekayim a mitzvah acheres lo yotza. B'tzorach achar kach lachzor l'kayim. So, what is the pshat of Osek b'mitzvah Pottur min a mitzvah? What does that mean? So he says one way is that he's Pottur. He doesn't have to do it. V'im yekayim a mitzvah acheres, and if he would do the other mitzvah, whatever mitzvah it is, the mitzvah A, mitzvah B, let's call it. Lo yotza. B'tzorach achar kach lachzor l'kayim. Gives an example. Kamoy, ba'oichel matzah b'shosha haya shoyta. He ate matzah when he was a shoyta, when he was mentally incapacitated. A shoyta is Pottur. Then v'achar kach nishtapa. Then he becomes healed. He becomes better again. So does he have to go eat matzah now? He was Pottur at the time. On the other hand, but if we say no, maybe Osek b'mitzvah is not actually Pottur, rather Ella shehu k'may onus. It's like he was honest, like something happened totally out of his control, completely beyond my capability to control that. But if he would do it, then he would fulfill it. So in other words, do we say that option number one, you simply don't, when you're involved in mitzvah A, you simply don't have to do mitzvah B?
No, the first one is not just you don't have to, it's almost like you're not allowed to do it.
Right. So let's try to think about it like this. Option number one, Hashem says, I'll go easy on you. It's okay. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. I understand that would really actually be the second approach, I think. That's more the second approach.
Give it a pass.
Give it a pass. Give it a pass. Hashem says, I understand mitigating circumstances, difficult situation. You don't have to do it. I'll let you off. I understand that you're not able to do it. That would really be the second thing. The first one would be, don't do it. It doesn't exist for you.
And if you do it, it won't count.
And if you do it, it won't count. Those are the two ways he sees Osek b'mitzvah Pottur min mitzvah. Option number one, the second mitzvah, let's call mitzvah one you're doing, mitzvah B is the one that is coming to you now. So option number one is that mitzvah B doesn't exist. There's no inyan of mitzvah B. Again, possibly like the oinain, the guy whose a relative passed away, haven't been buried yet, he's Pottur for mitzvahs. If it's sukkahs, does he have to go in the sukkah? No. What if he does go in the sukkah? Is it a mitzvah? Is it not a mitzvah? Or let's say like this. It's come time to daven shachris. Comes time to daven shachris, but you're Osek b'mitzvah. So do you have to daven shachris? No. Osek b'mitzvah, Pottur min mitzvah. So you don't have to daven shachris, right? But now you did that mitzvah, you were Osek b'mitzvah, that's over, and the zman for shachris is finished. That's after the zman of shachris. Now it's time for mincha. What do you do in mincha now?
Oh, do you have to do it?
Do you have to make tashlumin for shachris by mincha?
If you weren't allowed to do Pottur by the first example, like you can't do it, then you shouldn't have to do it.
So it depends. So the answer to that question depends on how I view, according to Rebbe Chonon Wasserman, how I view what is the pshat of Osek b'mitzvah Pottur min mitzvah. If I'm going to say that since I was Osek b'mitzvah, I didn't have to daven shachris, I wasn't required to daven. Well, if I wasn't required to daven, then I'm not missing anything either. And therefore, I don't need to make tashlumin because there's nothing to be mashlim.
No, you probably can't.
Oh, that would be the question. What if I did want to daven anyway? You could say maybe tefillas nadava, but it might be a problem to daven. Or in the case of the sukkah, if I go into the sukkah, I'm called an idiot. I'm called a fool for going into the sukkah. So that's the first pshat. That if it's a mitzvah potter made a mitzvah means that when you're involved in mitzvah A, mitzvah B simply doesn't exist. You're not, like again, the Shachris example, you're not chayiv, you're not obligated to daven Shachris. So then once mincha comes along, do you need to make tashlumin? No. Because you didn't miss, tashlumin is only if you missed Shachris. So no tashlumin. On the other hand, if we say, no. Shachris was there. You didn't daven it, and Hashem is okay with that because He says, I understand. I understand you weren't able to daven Shachris. I mean, you should have. You technically were supposed to, but you're off the hook. Get out of jail free. Well, if that's the case, then comes the time for mincha. Then you should make tashlumin because you were missing Shachris. Yeah.
If you're doing a mitzvah and then you finish the mitzvah and there's 1 minute left to daven Shachris, obviously you can't do it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you are still chayav Shachris, no? So if so, then would everyone agree that you could do such limit?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to the
Well,
question.
what you just said in terms of Pesach Sheni, they're doing Pesach Sheni because they couldn't do the first one. So even though they were Pottur, they're
That's a
still
whole big
doing it.
exception, though. No, that's a whole big exception to this whole rule. No,
Same similar.
that's an extra mitzvah that's added in, so to speak, because of the people who said Lo Manigora. Why should we lose out from being able to celebrate with everybody else? And Hashem puts a new mitzvah into the Torah.
You can't compare that to other things.
I don't know. What are there other? There is. I can think of one other example. Are there other times when you can't do something and then Hashem, so to speak, changes His mind and says, "Okay, fine, you can do it. I'll create something new." Not too many situations like that. Normally, if you miss the carbon's over. If you miss Shachris, I'm sorry, Shachris is over. You missed it.
Tashlumin.
Okay, you're tashlumin, unless you're going to say that you didn't have to daven Shachris in the first place. I didn't daven Ne'ilah today. Oh my gosh, I have to make tashlumin. No, there's no chiyuv for Ne'ilah. I didn't miss anything. If a child below the age of bar mitzvah misses a tefillah, he has to make tashlumin when it comes to bar mitzvah? For what? He wasn't chayiv. So it depends on how we look at it. Yeah.
Isn't he discussing Chagiga? The whole thing is a lame person or a blind person, whatever. He's not chayiv in the korban. Then he gets healed during the tashlumin days of the Yom Tov.
It's a dafyut
And
test
then
or something. Yeah.
right, and then he has to. The
Yeah.
question is, does he have to do it again?
Yeah. Dafyut
Isn't it the
test,
same idea?
test or something like that.
Same idea, no?
Maybe I
He was
I
Pottur.
didn't look in the Gemara recently. I don't know. But it's the same inyan. Same inyan. That if you're exempt at one point and then something changes, now what do? So, according to the Bechana Wasserman, there's two ways to understand it. Option number one, mitzvah B doesn't exist. Therefore, when you don't do it, you're not missing anything. That's the way Hashem set it up. You're not missing that mitzvah. Option number two, you are technically missing it, but Hashem understands. He's nice and He lets you off the hook. Those are two ways to understand Pshat. Good? Let's move on now. Source number 5. By the way, we should have welcomed. We already welcomed the Ran. Was the first time we ever had the Ran in our Shir Wednesday nights. Tosfos, I think we've had Tosfos before. And the Rebbe Chana Wasserman, first time we ever had him in our Shir, Baruch Hashem. Now the Rogachover Goin is, I think, the second time at least.
That's what you.
We've had him for sure. In fact, I think even last week we had him.
Yeah.
Born in 1858, died in 1936. This time I brought the book I have about him. That's what he looked like. Yosef Rosen, the Rogachover Goin. It's a whole book about him. In the back, actually, there's some articles by people that knew him. And there's an article by anybody know Rabbi Savitsky here in Key Gardens Hills? That's his father, Mordechai Savitsky. He knew the Rogachover going, wrote an article about him. He was apparently, I think he got smished from the Rogachover going, I think. Not sure. Rabbi Savitsky, the Rav on the shul on 73rd. Anyway, there's a whole long book here. Here, that's a good picture of the Rogachover going. Reportedly, he didn't cut his hair because there was no time. Either that, or
Yeah, for sure.
either that, or I've heard also maybe because he didn't want to take off his yarmulke. I heard such a thing. I don't know. In any event, this is the Rogachover Goin. What they've said about him is above and beyond. In any event, let's take a look. In fact, it's even the same of his farm that we had last time. Klolei Ateiv haMitzvah. Source number 5. Ein Zvochim Daf Yotes Amud Aleph. I didn't bring that. The Hod now the Rogat Shavar comes now and is mechadesh a gewaltige chiddush. There's not two ways in understanding Pshat and Osek Mitzvah, Pottur Mitzvah, the way Rabbi Chana Wasserman said. There's not two ways, there's three ways. There's three ways. The Osek Mitzvah, Pottur Mitzvah, this that we say that if you're doing one mitzvah, you're Pottur from the other. It's not to say that the first mitzvah, that the second mitzvah doesn't exist. And therefore you're not required to do it, so you didn't miss anything. And it's not to say that it exists and really technically you should do it, but Hashem understands, He's gentle, He's kind, He's forgiving. No, rather, it's not that you're not in the geder of that other mitzvah. It's not that you're not in the framework of it. Rather, rak kemoy shemakayim gam zeh. It's not only did you do mitzvah A, says the Rogat Shavar, a big chidush, you also did the mitzvah that you didn't do. Why did you not do it? Because the Gemara in Sukkah says, Osek b'mitzvah Pottur min mitzvah, so you didn't do it. But you did it, says the Rogat Shavar. But you did that one too. When you did mitzvah A, you did not do mitzvah B because you were Pottur from it, rightfully so. Kemoy shemakayim gam zeh.
So according to that, he would not be allowed to do tashlum.
Oh, that's the question I was going to ask. What would be the nafkamina if according to the Rogat Shavar going? Exactly. You hear what Rosh said? Why would he not be allowed to daven tashlum for chakras?
He did.
He did it already. Kivaldik. You hear? This is the Rogat Shavar going. See, I wrote on my short sheet, will there be tashlum in my mincha? So I wanted to bring that out. Givaldik. Yeah? People understand this? Where does the Rogat Shavar get such a chiddush from? Where did it to say you did the mitzvah you did not do? Where does he get such a chiddush from? So I think, I don't know if I think, but being that it's Yutas Kislev, or it's the continuation of Yutas Kislev, and I said that I'd like to try to bring to light some nigla with the teachings of Nister, the revealed teachings of Torah viewed through the lens of Pnimius HaTorah, the inner teachings of Torah. I don't know if there's any other way to explain this chiddush of the Rogat Shavar. I don't know if there's any other way. Let's take a look in the writings of the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, from Hemshich Samach Vav, which we learned Shabbos afternoons between Mincha and Mayev. The Rebbe Rashab was born in the town of Lubavitch in 1860. I was zeichet to be in the town of Lubavitch a number of years ago, Pesach, 2001, I think it was. And he,
Is there Chabad there?
Now, when I was there, 2001, two of the Rebbeim are buried there. The Tzemach Tzedek and the Rebbe Marash are buried there. The Rebbe Rashab, who was born there in 1860, didn't die there. He was passed away in 1920 in Rostov. He had to leave, whatever, the war, had to leave. The First World War, had to leave. When I went there, we flew to Russia for Pesach to make Sadarim, and there's a whole bunch of Bachim, like 200 Bachim or something, all flew to Moscow. It's a big balagan. It was great, big Febrengen. And then everybody from Moscow all branched out to different places all across Russia. And then we came back Cholamoid, back to Moscow. And then from there, everyone flew back mostly to New York, I guess. And so I did it twice. I went twice. So the first year I went, and you went with a chavrusa, with a friend to make the Siddharm and stuff. First year I went was when we went to Lubavitch. So they put us on a bus at night. We drove through the night. And in the morning, the sun's up. It was a very uncomfortable ride, very uncomfortable bus. The bus is pulled over the side of the road, and everybody gets off the bus. Okay, I guess when in Rome, I'll just do what everyone else is doing. So I got off the bus. Look out, nothing, just like a field in the middle of nowhere. Everyone's getting off the bus, and I see people are walking down. There's a little banks of a river. People are walking down and stripping their clothes off and jumping in the river. Mikvah. Built the mikvah. Okay, when in Rome, or not Rome, but when in Russia. So I did the same thing. Jump in the river. Then it was quite dirty. I remember it was quite dirty. And we got back on the bus, and then like around the kind of rounded the bend, and that was the town of Lubavitch right there. I have some pictures I recently actually found in my parents' house, and not so recently, a little while ago. I remember that I had, because I had a film camera. It was 2001. I had a film camera. And I had some film photos with the negatives as well, and I had the negatives scanned by a lab in Brooklyn. So anyway, I had some pictures there from the town of Lubavitch, but it was nothing there. The pictures are interesting, but now apparently I haven't been there since then. They built it up. They built an actual mikveh. They built like a Hachnas Zorchim house, and it's a whole situation there. In any event, so the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rebbe Sholem Dover, delivered very profound and deep Maimarim of Chassidus, and including this particular source number 6, Hemshech Samech Vav, which is something like 100 some, or I don't remember how many, Maimarim of Chassidus, teachings of Chassidus, that would continue one to the next from Shabbos to Shabbos to Shabbos to Shabbos. He started on Rosh Hashanah in 1905, continued for over a year, and was basically just continually, each Shabbos, developing and going deeper into the same theme. And that would often lead down different alleyways and different digressions and so on and so forth, but always eventually kind of coming back to the theme. And it's a very tremendous, doesn't need me to say how tremendous it is. In any event, the Rebbe Rashab writes as follows. You have 248 mitzvahs, which is brought down in Kabbalah. 248 mitzvahs are considered the 248 Evarim the Malka, limbs of the king. Which means, what that means, I think in plain English, is that there's a king, it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? And each of the mitzvahs, so to speak, corresponds, whatever that means exactly, to some element, to some aspect within HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Sheyesh b'hem gam ken ha'iskalus zeh mizeh. That the mitzvahs, just like a limb, one limb of your body has hiskalulus zeh mizeh, is inter-inclusive of all the other limbs. And it's all makes up part of one unit, part of one body. You can't say, my right hand, oh, this is me, this, my left, this is not me. That doesn't make sense. Every limb of the body is included. That's why sometimes a person has a problem in one part of their body. The doctors may treat a different part of the body to heal that part of the body. Or like they say, for example, that modern day scientists say, the stomach and the whole digestive system is called the second brain. The second brain. Because what does a brain do? A brain tells you what to do and how to do it. And the gut also, in a sense, tells you what to do and how to do it. And it affects a person's feelings. I once heard from a GI doctor that if someone, God forbid, has, GI problems, he told me, I can't imagine how that will not affect their mental health, their emotional state of being. It's going to have an effect on them. So a person has to know that because it's a second brain. There's this inter-inclusiveness, all the limbs of the body, you can't separate one from the other. It's all inter-inclusive. So, just like every limb is inter-inclusive, and the limbs, that's the mitzvahs. So the mitzvahs too, the lochein, since the mitzvahs are inter-inclusive one of the other, the lochein kol ha'osek b'mitzvah pottur min ha'mitzvah. Therefore, the halachic ruling is it influenced, and it's not just influenced, it's a manifestation of the spiritual concept of inter-inclusiveness. All the mitzvahs are interrelated and inter-included. That's why when you do one mitzvah, you don't have to do the other. Why? Because when you do mitzvah A, you accomplish the spiritual accomplishments of mitzvah B that you didn't even do.
So that's what the substance Paneach says.
That's the substance Paneach. No, he doesn't say that. The Chassidus in Surah 6 is he doesn't say the Chassidus. But spiritually speaking, the Rebbe Rashab is saying, source number 6, that all the mitzvahs are including one or the other. It's all one package. What is the package? I mean, think about it like this. What is a mitzvah? What is a mitzvah? Commandment. What is it though? A mitzvah is Ratzon Hashem. A mitzvah is what Hashem wants you to do. What does it make a difference if Hashem wants you to put on tefillin, or wear tzitzis, or chop wood? What does it make a difference what Hashem wants you to do? He wants you to do this mitzvah, so do it. Every mitzvah in that sense is the same. It's the same inyan in that sense. On a certain external level, every mitzvah is the same nikud, is the same point. It's the Ratzon Hashem, it's the will of Hashem, and it's what the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya. It was Kislev Tanya. You did the Tanya today?
Yeah.
Give out.
2 days.
2 days. It says in Tanya that the word mitzvah is related to the Aramaic word tzavsa, which means tzavsa v'chibur, a bond, a connection. So on a certain level, every mitzvah is the same. It's Ratzon Hashem, it's a tzavsa v'chibur, it's a connection to the Eibishter. And therefore, when you do one mitzvah, it's like all the limbs of the body, the blood flows through your entire body. Is it different blood in my left hand than in my right hand? No, it's the same blood. It all flows through. It's all connected. So one mitzvah brings down the energy of the other mitzvah too. Which that's what the Rogat Shover going to say. Why or how? Because spiritually you are doing the other mitzvah. And that's where the Rogat Shover gets this chiddush from. Again, he doesn't say that. He just says a chiddush, different than Rabbi Chana Wasserman. A third approach. By not doing, when you don't do mitzvah B, you are doing it. Explains Chassidus that the soul of Torah, the panemius, the inner teachings of Torah, yeah, of course you did mitzvah B. Because mitzvah A includes mitzvah B. The blood courses through the entire body. It's all part of one unit. So doing mitzvah A is, by definition, also doing mitzvah B. Questions, comments? They're short.
Can you go over the raya, the Rogat Shover's raya? Dylan?
Try. Now there's like this. The big day kahuna, source number 5, the last line, he says, V'raya, what's the proof? That tefillin ain't a chatzitza b'big day kahuna. Tefillin are not a chatzitza. What's a chatzitza? Chatzitza means an intervening substance. If that's an okay translation, more or less. The big day kahuna, the clothing that the kohen is supposed to wear, have to be on him, on his flesh. That doesn't mean they have to be glued to him, right? There could be air, there could be space between it, but it can't be anything between him and the big day kahuna. What about tefillin? He's going to wear the tefillin, and where exactly does the tzitz go? Does it go above, below? All discussion. How does the kohen wear the tzitz if he has tefillin on? And what if the tefillin, the straps or part of, are between the tzitz, the whatever, how do you ever translate in English? The crown, the whatever it's translated as. What if they're between him, the tefillin, or between him and the big day kahuna, the tzitz? So you might think it's a chatzitza, it's an intervening substance. The big day kahuna are supposed to be on him. So he says, but they're not. The tefillin are not. Why not? I think what he's saying is K'moshe Makayim Gamzeh. Because by wearing the tefillin, you're doing the tzitz also. Or vice versa. By wearing the tzitz, you're doing the tefillin. So it cannot be a chatzitza. Because it's one and the same thing.
But according to that,
yeah,
shouldn't the logic be there would be no need to wear the tefillin? Because by wearing the tzitz, he would be wearing tefillin?
Yeah.
The question is, it's a good question. I don't exactly know, but I think it could be, all things being equal, you're right. All things being equal, you're right. I went to look at this halacha, and I didn't look at the halacha in the Rambam. But in a scenario when you would be doing both of them, and again, especially if we take into account the idea of, like Tosfos's question, am I Pottur if you can do both of them? Why not do both? So you can wear tefillin. How much effort does that take? Not much. By the way, the Rogat Shover has a whole nother a whole other investigation. What is the mitzvah of tefillin? Is the mitzvah of tefillin to bind them, to tie them on you? Or is the mitzvah of tefillin that they should be on you? And the nafkamina there may be, one nafkamina may be, let's say you put on tefillin at 6 a.m., but the zman is only 6:30 a.m. So let's say you put them on 6 a.m., and it's not the zman for tefillin. Is that a mitzvah? No. Now you're wearing them. The zman for tefillin comes 6:30, and you continue wearing them until 7. So the nafkamina would be, did you do the mitzvah of tefillin? But it depends. If the mitzvah is to bind them on you, then you'd have to take them off and put them back on because you didn't bind them on you when the Zman came. If the mitzvah, huh?
Isn't that what the mitzvah is?
Well, it's a good question. That's the whole question the Halacha Chassidus discusses. The lanir means to place them. So is the mitzvah that you should place them or that they should be placed? So if the mitzvah is just that I should have them on me, good. So I put them on at 6 when I didn't have to put them on. Now 6:30, they're on me. Good. The mitzvah is to have them on me. Okay. Anyway, the Halacha Chassidus has a whole discussion about this too. Maybe we'll do that for another week. Again, I didn't look up the Rambam about this, but I think that may be what it is. That since, again, especially in light of the Tosfos, who says that if you could be Mekayim both of them, so why not be Mekayim both of them? There's no reason not to be Mekayim both of them. So in that case, you can wear tefillin, takes 0 effort. Well, 0.
It's a tefillin like wearing tzitzis, where it's not something black.
Tosfos says that, yeah.
So it could be the same.
Tosfos says exactly. How much effort does it take? The tefillin's on your head. It doesn't take you. You don't have to be, and also the tzitz. So you can do both. And one doesn't act as an intervening substance between the other. Why? Because doing one is like doing the other. So if it's like doing the other, you can't separate yourself. You can't. So if tefillin and the tzitz, the big day kahuna, are effectively one, choose which one you want, so to speak. Do A or B, as he says, k'moshe makayim gamzeh. Then how could one be a chatzitza? How could one be an intervening substance? A chatzitza, by definition, is something foreign. That's the pshat chatzitza, right? Chatzitza means it's foreign; it doesn't belong. So here, I think what the Halacha Chassidus is saying, there's nothing foreign. It doesn't not belong. Something like that.
I'm just wondering how that's a raya to Kamo Shemekayim Gamzeh. Like what he said. It sounds like the raya would be, when you're wearing B'gdei Kuna, you don't have to wear tefillin. Let's just say that were the case. That's what it sounds like the raya would be. But this is the case where you're. Like theoretically, I guess if you put the tefillin on top of the tzitz, let's say whatever the tefillin were on, the straps were on top of it, so then you could also say the same thing. It's not like chatzitza, the straps, because you're doing them.
It's the same thing, right?
You say the same exact thing. But
I didn't look up this part of the halacha.
Right, look like Zvachim was talking about all these interposing things.
Right.
For the
You looked it up?
I'm just looking, trying to find it.
Okay, so can report back to us on Shabbos. Okay, that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you.
To be continued. Thanks for